Chloe Morgan stood in the grand foyer of her family's estate, the chandeliers above casting a golden glow on the marble floors. As the sole heiress to the Morgan dynasty, a century-old aristocratic clan known for its unshakable influence in finance and real estate, she gracefully carried the weight of legacy. Her engagement to Ethan Lawson, the charming scion of a newly risen business family, was meant to be the crowning jewel of her future. The Morgans had supported the Lawsons through their financial struggles, offering capital and connections to elevate their modest enterprise into a burgeoning empire. Chloe believed Ethan loved her, his promises of devotion as dazzling as the diamond on her finger. But that illusion shattered one crisp autumn evening. Ethan had just returned from a business trip to Shanghai, and his eyes were alight with a fervor Chloe didn't recognize. They met in the private lounge of the Lawson Villa, a modern mansion that paled beside the Morgan estate's timeless elegance. Ethan paced, his tailored suit slightly rumpled, as if he'd been wrestling with a decision. Chloe, dressed in a silk gown that hugged her frame, sensed the air thicken with unspoken tension. "Chloe, we need to talk," Ethan began, his voice clipped. He avoided her gaze, focusing instead on the city skyline beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. "I've met someone else. Her name is Lily Green. She's different, sweet, unspoiled by all this." He gestured vaguely at the opulent room. "I want to marry her. I'm sorry, but we need to end our engagement." The words hit Chloe like a physical blow, her breath catching in her throat. She stared at him, searching for the man who'd once whispered vows of eternal love during moonlit walks in her family's gardens. "Lily Green?" she echoed, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside. "Who is she?" Ethan's expression softened, a dreamy smile curling his lips. "A college student working part-time to make ends meet. She's studying fashion design, full of dreams but no pretense. She saved me in Shanghai, helped me when I was lost, literally and figuratively. She's the one I want, Chloe. Not this." His hand waved dismissively as if their shared history, years of support, shared dreams, and her family's backing meant nothing. Chloe's fingers tightened around the stem of her wine glass, the crystal cool against her palm. The Morgans had paved Ethan's path to elite circles, introducing him to tycoons who'd otherwise never glance at a Phoenix man clawing his way up. Her father had personally funded Ethan's latest real estate venture, a skyscraper project that promised to cement the Lawson name. And now, this betrayal, for a girl he'd known mere weeks? Before Chloe could respond, the heavy oak doors swung open, and Mrs. Lawson swept in, her designer heels clicking sharply. A woman in her 50s with a polished exterior, she exuded ambition masked as warmth. Her eyes, sharp as a hawk's, darted between Chloe and her son. "Ethan, what's this nonsense?" she snapped, her voice low but venomous. "You're throwing away everything for some nobody?" "Mother, please," Ethan said, exasperation lacing his tone. "Lily isn't a nobody. She's the woman I love. Chloe deserves to know the truth." Mrs. Lawson's gaze softened as it landed on Chloe, but the sympathy felt rehearsed. "Chloe, darling, I'm so sorry. This is a shock to us all. But don't worry, Auntie will handle it." She stepped closer, her perfume cloying. "This Lily Green threatens your future and the Lawson-Morgan alliance. I've already made arrangements. She'll be sent to northern Myanmar, where troublemakers disappear." "It's for your good, my dear." Chloe's stomach churned at the words. Northern Myanmar, a lawless region infamous for human trafficking rings. She'd heard whispers of such schemes in elite circles, but to hear Mrs. Lawson propose it so casually, as if discussing a business deal, was chilling. The Lawson family's rise had been meteoric, fueled by Morgan's support, but their hunger for status was insatiable. Mrs. Lawson saw Chloe as a stepping stone to true aristocracy, and Lily as an obstacle to be crushed. "I need time to think," Chloe said, her voice measured to mask her horror. She set down her glass, the clink echoing in the tense silence. Ethan's eyes flickered with relief, mistaking her restraint for acceptance. Mrs. Lawson nodded, a predatory smile curving her lips. "Of course, darling. Take all the time you need. We'll ensure everything is handled discreetly." She glanced at Ethan, her expression hardening. "And you, young man, will come to your senses." Chloe excused herself, her heels echoing as she left the lounge. Outside, the cool night air stung her cheeks. but it couldn't quell the fire of betrayal raging within. She climbed into her sleek Bugatti, the engine's purr contrasting her racing thoughts. Ethan's words replayed, his dismissal of their shared dreams, his infatuation with a stranger. And Mrs. Lawson's ruthless plan revealed the actual cost of their ambition. No one was safe if they threatened the Lawson climb. Yet Chloe's heart, though wounded, refused to embrace vengeance. Lily Green was no villain, just a young woman caught in the crossfire of elite games. Driving through the city's glittering streets, Chloe made a decision. She wouldn't let Mrs. Lawson's cruelty define her. Using her family's private jet, she arranged for Lily to be sent not to Myanmar, but to a quiet town in Yunnan, a place of rolling hills and anonymity. It was a small act of mercy, one she hoped would protect an innocent life. As the jet's confirmation came through, Chloe gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white. She didn't know the full extent of the Lawson family's treachery, nor the horrors that awaited if she trusted them. But this moment, choosing compassion over destruction, planted the seed of her strength. The city lights blurred past, a silent promise that she would fight for her future, even as the shadows of betrayal loomed large. Chloe Morgan stood at the altar, her white gown shimmering under the cathedral's stained glass glow. The Morgan Lawson wedding was a spectacle of elite society, with tycoons and aristocrats filling the pews. Dashing in his tuxedo, Ethan Lawson smiled at her, his eyes warm with what she believed was love. Chloe had forgiven him despite his earlier betrayal, his fleeting obsession with Lily Green. He'd returned, apologetic, claiming Lily was a mistake, a moment of weakness. Her heart, bruised but hopeful, clung to the promise of a shared future. The Morgans' support had already propelled Ethan's real estate ventures to new heights. Surely their marriage would solidify their bond. But beneath the vows and champagne toasts, a shadow lingered. Chloe had spared Lily, sending her to safety in Yunnan rather than the horrors of Myanmar, as Mrs. Lawson had urged. She'd kept this secret, believing it a private act of mercy. Yet Ethan's gaze, when it met hers, sometimes flickered with an unreadable edge. She dismissed it as nerves, blinded by her trust in love's power to heal. The Morgans doubled their investments in Ethan's projects, handing him the keys to their vast network. Chloe dreamed of growing old with him, their children inheriting a legacy of unity. That dream crumbled within a year. Ethan's ambition, once a spark, became a wildfire. Using the Morgans' connections, he brokered deals with global magnates, his skyscrapers piercing city skylines. But as his empire rose, he turned on the family that had lifted him. The Morgan enterprises, cornerstones of finance and real estate, began to falter. Suspicious audits, leaked contracts, and hostile takeovers eroded their foundation. Chloe's father, William Morgan, fought tirelessly, his face etched with worry. Ethan was moving too fast, and he warned her one evening, his voice heavy. "He's not consulting us anymore." Chloe confronted Ethan in their penthouse, the city's lights sprawling below. "What's happening to my family's companies?" she demanded, her voice trembling. Ethan, sipping whiskey, didn't look at her. "Business is war, Chloe. Your father's too soft for it." His tone was cold, stripped of the warmth she'd once known. When she pressed further, he spun on her, eyes blazing. "Do you think you're above me because of your name? You're nothing without me now." The betrayal deepened. Ethan's hatred, simmering beneath his success, erupted. He believed Chloe had sent Lily to Myanmar, condemning her to suffering. Mrs. Lawson, ever the puppeteer, had fed him this lie, twisting Chloe's mercy into malice. "You destroyed her," Ethan snarled one night, grabbing Chloe's wrist. "Lily's gone because of you." His accusation stunned her. She'd saved Lily, but his rage was unyielding. He began to unravel the Morgans with surgical precision, targeting their assets and allies. The final blow came swiftly. Breaking by the collapse of his empire, William Morgan stood on the roof of their headquarters. Chloe arrived too late, her screams echoing as he stepped into the void, his body crumpling on the pavement below. The sight, his skull shattered, his legacy in ruins, seared into her soul. Ethan's empire soared, built on the Morgans' ashes, while Chloe's world imploded. Her mother's grave was desecrated, and her ashes were dumped into a landfill on Ethan's orders. Family members who resisted were driven to madness or locked in asylums. Chloe's suffering became Ethan's obsession. He stripped her of dignity, dragging her by the hair to the beds of leering strangers. unwanted bachelors who mocked her heritage. "This is what Morgan's worth," he sneered, his once loving eyes bloodshot with hate. Her pleas were brushed aside. His cruel laughter drowned her screams. The ultimate torment awaited at a black site, a clandestine facility where she was subjected to human experiments. Needles pierced her skin, chemicals burned her veins, and her body withered under the weight of agony. Ethan visited once, standing over her as she lay strapped to a table. "You'll pay tenfold for Lily," he whispered, his voice ablade. "Every pain she endured, you'll feel." In her final moments, Chloe lay alone in the sterile darkness, her body broken, her spirit fraying. The monitors beeped faintly, her heartbeat slowing. She thought of her father's crumpled form, her mother's defiled ashes, and the trust she'd placed in a man who'd used her to climb. Regret gnawed at her. Why had she believed in him? Why had she let the Morgans fall? Her last breath carried a silent vow. If given a chance, she'd rewrite this tragedy. As her eyes closed, the world faded, and a faint, ethereal whisper seemed to answer, promising a reckoning she couldn't yet grasp. Part 3. A mystical rebirth, darkness enveloped Chloe Morgan, her body a hollow shell in the black site's sterile chamber. The pain of needles and chemicals had faded, leaving only the weight of regret. Her father's broken body on the pavement, her mother's ashes defiled, and Ethan Lawson's hateful gaze haunted her final thoughts. She'd trusted him, loved him, and in doing so, delivered her family to ruin. As her heartbeat slowed, a tear slipped down her cheek, carrying a silent plea for a chance to undo her mistakes. The monitors flatlined, and the world dissolved into silence. Then a faint whisper pierced the void, ethereal yet commanding. "You trusted too unquestioningly," it said, its gentle and stern tone like a celestial judge. "Your heart was pure, but your choices led to ruin. Live again, Chloe Morgan, and choose wisely. Balance the scales of justice." A surge of warmth flooded her like an unseen force. Karmic, divine, or something older had seized her soul. Light flared behind her closed eyes, and her chest heaved with a sudden breath. Chloe's eyes snapped open. She was no longer in the black site, but the Lawson Villa's private lounge, the same opulent room where Ethan had shattered her world months ago. The city skyline gleamed beyond the windows, and the air carried the faint scent of Mrs. Lawson's cloying perfume. Chloe's silk gown clung to her, her wineglass still cool in her hand. She froze, her heart pounding. This was the night Ethan had announced his love for Lily Green, the night Mrs. Lawson had proposed sending her to Myanmar's trafficking rings. Her mind reeled, memories of her past life crashing like waves. The wedding, Ethan's betrayal, her father's suicide, the horrors of the black site. They were vivid as if etched in blood. Yet here she was, alive, on the day her downfall began. The ethereal voice echoed in her thoughts. Live again. Choose wisely. It wasn't a dream or madness. She'd been reborn, granted a second chance by a force she couldn't name. A karmic reckoning, perhaps, to right the wrongs she'd unwittingly set in motion. Mrs. Lawson's voice cut through her daze, sharp and manipulative. "Chloe, darling, don't worry. Auntie will handle this, Lily Green. She'll be sent to northern Myanmar, where troublemakers vanish. It's for your good." The woman's predatory smile was unchanged, her eyes glinting with ambition. Ethan stood nearby, his expression a mix of defiance and guilt, still enamored with Lily. The scene is identical to her past life, but Chloe is not. Her hand trembled around the glass, not from fear, but from a fire kindling within. She now saw what she'd missed: the Lawsons' hunger for status, using her as a ladder to elite society. In her past life, she'd believed Mrs. Lawson's flattery, trusted Ethan's apologies, and paid the ultimate price. Her family's empire had crumbled because she'd been naive, mistaking manipulation for loyalty. The unshakable Morgans had shattered like glass under her watch for a century. "No," Chloe said, her voice low but firm, cutting off Mrs. Lawson's scheming. The older woman blinked, startled. "I never agreed to harm Lily. That's not who I am." The words carried a weight she hadn't known in her past life, a clarity born of suffering. She set the glass down, the clink echoing like a gavel. Ethan shifted, his brow furrowing, but Chloe's gaze locked on Mrs. Lawson. Do you think I'm a pawn in your climb to aristocracy? The Morgans don't play those games, Mrs. Lawson's smile faltered, her composure cracking. Chloe, you misunderstand. I'm protecting you, our alliance. Enough, Chloe interrupted, standing taller. I see you now, both of you. She glanced at Ethan, whose dreamy talk of Lily had once broken her heart. Now it only fueled her resolve. The ethereal voice's command, balance the scales, rang in her mind. She wouldn't repeat her mistakes. She wouldn't marry Ethan, prop up the Lawsons, or let her family fall. Lily, too, deserved better than their schemes. Stepping toward the door, Chloe felt the weight of her past life's pain transform into purpose. She said, I'll handle this my way, her voice steady despite the storm within. Mrs. Lawson reached for her arm, but Chloe pulled away, her heels clicking on the marble floor. Outside, the night air was crisp, the stars above a silent witness to her rebirth. She climbed into her Bugatti, the engine's roar mirroring her determination. As she sped through the city, Chloe's thoughts raced. The Lawsons had used her family's wealth and connections to climb, but she'd been blind to their greed. Her father's trust, her stepmother's loyalty, her own heart, they'd all been sacrificed for Ethan's ambition. The memory of her father's body crumpled on the pavement, tightened her grip on the wheel. Never again, she vowed. She'd protect the Morgans, expose the Lawsons, and ensure Lily's safety, not out of vengeance, but justice. The ethereal whisper lingered, a guide in the darkness. Chloe didn't know its origin, fate, karma, or something beyond, but it had given her this chance. She wouldn't waste it. The city lights blurred past, each a beacon of the future she'd forge. She'd choose wisely this time, and the Lawsons would learn the cost of crossing a Morgan reborn. Chloe Morgan stood in the Lawson Villa's private lounge, the weight of her reborn memories anchoring her resolve. The city skyline glittered beyond the windows, starkly contrasting the scheming within. Mrs. Mays. Lawson's voice dripped with calculated warmth, her words slicing through the air like a blade cloaked in silk. Chloe, darling, this Lily Green is a problem, but Auntie will handle it. She'll be sent to northern Myanmar, out of sight, out of mind. It's for your good to secure your place as Ethan's bride. Her smile was predatory, eyes glinting with the ambition that had driven the Lawsons to cling to the Morgans' coattails. Ethan stood nearby, his posture rigid, caught between guilt and defiance. His declaration of love for Lily Green still hung in the air, a betrayal that stung less now, sharpened by Chloe's past life clarity. In her previous life, she'd been swayed by Mrs. Lawson's flattery, believing the older woman acted in her interest. That naivety had led to her family's ruin, her father's suicide, and her torment at Ethan's hands. The ethereal voice that had granted her rebirth caught in her mind. Choose wisely. This time, she would. Her grip tightened on the wine glass, its cool crystal grounding her. She saw the Lawsons for what they were, social climbers who'd used her family's wealth and connections to ascend from obscurity. The Morgans, a century-old dynasty, had been their ladder, and Chloe, their unwitting key. Mrs. Lawson's plan to eliminate Lily wasn't about protecting Chloe, but securing the Lawson-Morgan alliance, ensuring their place among the elite. Lily, a college student with no power, was collateral damage in their ruthless game. No, Chloe said, her voice cutting through Mrs. Lawson's scheming like a whip. The older woman froze, her smile faltering. I never agreed to harm Lily. Saving a life is worth more than your schemes. She set the glass down with a deliberate clink, the sound resonating in the tense silence. Ethan's brow furrowed, his gaze flickering between confusion and unease. Mrs. Lawson's eyes narrowed, her composure cracking like thin ice. Chloe, you misunderstand, Mrs. Lawson said, stepping closer, her tone syrupy but strained. I'm protecting you, our future. A girl like Lily has no place here. You're the true daughter-in-law of the Lawson family, a Morgan heiress. Ethan will see reason. Her words were a carefully woven trap to pull Chloe back into their orbit. Chloe had fallen for it in her past life, trusting Mrs. Lawson's maternal facade. Now she saw the calculation beneath, every gesture aimed at binding the Morgans' power to the Lawsons' ambition. Chloe straightened, her silk gown catching the light as she met Mrs. Lawson's gaze. I'm a tool for your social climb, The Morgans don't need your games. Her voice was steady, laced with quiet steel forged in the fires of her past suffering. You want to skip decades of hardship by using me, but I'm done being your stepping stone? The words carried the weight of her reborn resolve, each rejecting the manipulation that had once destroyed her. Mrs. Lawson's face paled, her hands clenching at her sides. Chloe, be reasonable. This alliance benefits us all. Ethan's just confused. Enough, Chloe interrupted, her eyes flashing. She turned to Ethan, who shifted uncomfortably under her scrutiny. Do you want Lily? Fine, but don't expect me to clean up your mess. His mouth opened, but no words came. Once broken by his betrayal, Chloe's heart is now beating with purpose. She wouldn't repeat her mistake of clinging to a man who'd used her family to build his empire, only to burn it down. Turning back to Mrs. Lawson, Chloe's voice softened, but not with kindness, with resolve. Lily doesn't deserve your cruelty. I'll ensure she's safe, but not your way. She stepped toward the door, her heels clicking on the marble floor, each step a declaration of independence. Mrs. Lawson lunged forward, her hand grazing Chloe's arm. Chloe, you can't just walk away. Think of the future. Chloe pulled free, her gaze cold. I am thinking of the future. Mine and the Morgans. You should do the same for your own. She swept out of the lounge, the heavy oak doors closing behind her with a thud that felt final. Outside, the night air was sharp, cleansing the cloying scent of Mrs. Lawson's perfume from her lungs. Chloe climbed into her Bugatti, the engine's roar a mirror to the fire within her. As she sped through the city, Chloe's mind raced with strategy. In her past life, she'd sent Lily to Yunnan, a quiet act of mercy that Ethan had mistaken for malice, fueling his hatred. This time, she'd do the same, but with purpose. Using her family's private jet, she arranged for Lily to be relocated to a serene town in Yunnan, far from the Lawsons' reach. A discreet contact confirmed the plan. Lily would be safe, with funds to start anew. It wasn't vengeance, it was justice, a refusal to let an innocent suffer for the Lawsons' greed. The city lights streaked past, each one a reminder of the empire she'd nearly lost. Her father's face, worn with worry in her past life, flashed in her mind. She wouldn't let him fall again. The Lawsons had exploited the Morgans' trust, but Chloe was no longer blind. The ethereal voice's command balanced the scales, pulsed in her veins. She'd protect her family, expose the Lawsons' true nature, and forge a path where trust was earned, not given. The road ahead was hers to shape, and she'd drive it with eyes wide open. Chloe Morgan stood in the Lawson Villa's lounge, the city's skyline a glittering backdrop to the unraveling drama. Her reborn memories burned bright. Ethan's betrayal, her family's ruin, the horrors she'd endured. Mrs. Lawson's voice, laced with desperation, filled the room. Chloe, you can't walk away from this. Ethan's just confused by that girl, Lily Green. Marry him, and we'll secure the Lawson-Morgan alliance. It's your future, darling. Her eyes gleamed with ambition, betraying the lie of her maternal tone. She needed Chloe's status to propel the Lawsons into elite society. Ethan shifted beside his mother, his face mixed with guilt and defiance. Moments ago, he'd reaffirmed his love for Lily, the college student he'd met in Shanghai, and his desire to break off the engagement. Chloe had clung to him in her past life, believing love could mend his heart. That choice had led to her father's suicide and her torment. Now, the ethereal voice that had granted her rebirth, choose wisely, guided her. She wouldn't repeat her mistakes. Her fingers, steady now, released the wineglass onto the mahogany table, the clink cutting through Mrs. Lawson's pleas. Ethan doesn't love me, Chloe said, her voice calm but unyielding. And I won't force a man who doesn't want me to stay. She turned to Ethan, her gaze piercing. You're free to be with Lily. But the Morgans are done with you. The words carried the weight of her past suffering, each syllable a step toward liberation, Mrs. Lawson's face twisted, her composure shattering. Chloe, you're being ridiculous. The Lawson family needs you. Without the Morgans, She stopped, realizing her slip. Her desperation laid bare the truth. The Lawsons' rise from obscurity had been fueled by Morgan's wealth and connections. Chloe's engagement was their ticket to aristocracy, and she was slipping from their grasp. Chloe's lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. You need me, but I don't need you. She stepped back, her silk gown catching the light, a symbol of her untouchable resolve. In her past life, she'd been swayed by Mrs. Lawson's flattery, handing Ethan her family's resources, real estate projects, elite introductions, that built his empire. That empire had crushed the Morgans. Now, she saw the Lawson matriarch for what she was, a schemer who'd sacrifice anyone for status. Ethan spoke, his voice hesitant. Chloe, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you. Lily, she's my future. His words, once daggers to her heart, now fell flat. Chloe's compassion had already saved Lily, sending her to Yunnan's safety instead of Myanmar's horrors. Ethan's naivety, thinking he could discard a Morgan heiress and still inherit his family's ambitions, almost amused her. Then go to her, Chloe said, her tone devoid of bitterness. But don't expect my family's support. She turned to leave, her heels clicking on the marble floor, each step severing the ties that had bound her. Mrs. Lawson lunged forward, grabbing her arm. No, Chloe, you can't do this. Ethan must marry you. You belong with us. Her voice cracked, panic replacing her polished facade. Chloe pulled free, her gaze icy. A man who betrays me is filth. He's not worth my time. The words stunned Mrs. Lawson into silence, her hand falling limp. Ethan's eyes widened, but he said nothing, his love-drunk haze closing his eyes to the consequences. He believed himself indispensable, the sole heir to the Lawson legacy, unaware of his father's illegitimate sons waiting in the wings. The lounge doors loomed ahead, a threshold to freedom. Chloe paused, glancing back at the Lawsons. Mrs. Lawson's ashen face, Ethan's conflicted stare. This is your choice, she said, addressing them both. Live with it. She swept through the doors, the heavy oak slamming shut behind her. The sound echoed like a final verdict, sealing the end of her entanglement with their greed. Outside, a drizzle kissed her skin, soaking her gown and hair. Chloe didn't care. The cool air was a balm, washing away the suffocating weight of the Lawson villa. She slid into her Bugatti, the leather seat cool against her back. As the engine roared, a smile tugged at her lips, not of joy, but triumph. She was free, unshackled from a future that had once destroyed her. The drizzle streaked across the windshield, each drop's a reminder of the tears she'd shed in her past life. No more. Driving through the city, Chloe's mind sharpened with purpose. In her past life, she'd married Ethan, handing him the Morgans' resources. Her father had trusted him, her stepmother had supported him, and Chloe had loved him. That trust had led to ruin. She'd ended the engagement before the Lawsons could sink their claws deeper. She'd protected Lily, not out of weakness but strength, ensuring an innocent wouldn't suffer for their ambition. The city lights blurred past, a constellation of possibilities. Chloe's next move was clear. Warn her parents, sever all Morgan Lawson ties, and protect their empire. The ethereal voice's command, balance the scales, pulsed in her veins. She wouldn't seek vengeance but justice. The Lawsons would learn the cost of their greed, and Chloe would rebuild her future on her terms. The road stretched ahead, wet with rain, but bright with promise. And she drove into it, a woman reborn and unbound. Chloe Morgan's Bugatti purred through the rain-slicked streets, the city's neon glow reflecting off the wet asphalt. The drizzle that had soaked her gown during her escape from the Lawson villa clung to her skin, a reminder of her newfound freedom. Her heart, once heavy with betrayal, now pulsed with purpose. She'd ended her engagement with Ethan Lawson, rejecting his mother's manipulative pleas to preserve their alliance. But the Lawsons' threat loomed larger than a broken betrothal. In her past life, they'd used her family's resources to build an empire only to orchestrate the Morgans' ruin. The ethereal voice that had granted her rebirth balanced the scales, urged her to act swiftly. The Morgan estate loomed ahead, its iron gates and sprawling gardens a testament to a century of unshakable legacy. Chloe parked, her heels sinking into the gravel as she hurried inside. The grand foyer, chandeliers, and ancestral portraits felt like a sanctuary after the Lawson villa's suffocating schemes. Her father, William Morgan, and stepmother Eleanor were in the study, poring over financial reports. William's brow was furrowed, his silver hair catching the lamplight. Eleanor, ever pragmatic, scribbled notes, her expression tense. They looked up as Chloe entered, concern flashing in their eyes at her rain-drenched state. "Chloe, what's wrong?" William asked, rising from his chair. "You're soaked." "Did something happen with Ethan?" Chloe took a steadying breath, her reborn memories sharp as glass. In her past life, she'd kept silent, trusting Ethan's promises while the Lawsons plotted. Her father's suicide, the desecration of her mother's grave, and her torment had followed. She wouldn't let history repeat. "Dad, Mom, I've ended the engagement," she said, her voice firm. "But it's more than that. The Lawsons are dangerous. They're planning to bankrupt us, to steal everything the Morgans have." Eleanor's pen stilled, her eyes narrowing. "Bankrupt us? Chloe, that's a serious accusation. What do you know?" Her tone was gentle but probing, reflecting her loyalty to the family, despite Chloe's past coldness toward her. Chloe stepped closer, the fire of her resolve warming her chilled skin. "I overheard them at the villa. Mrs. Lawson admitted they need our wealth and connections to climb into elite circles. Ethan's been using our resources, your investments, Dad's introductions, to build his projects. But they're not partners, they're predators. They'll sabotage our companies, manipulate deals, and leave us nothing." She paused, her voice softening. "I trusted them before, and it cost us everything. I won't let it happen again." William's face darkened, his hands clenching the desk's edge. "I've had my doubts about Ethan. He's been too secretive with his latest ventures, bypassing our oversight. But to plot against us..." He trailed off, pain flickering in his eyes. In her past life, his trust in Ethan had led to his downfall. Now, Chloe's warning offered a chance to rewrite that fate. Eleanor stood, her practicality cutting through the tension. "How do you know this, Chloe? Overhearing a conversation is one thing, but we need specifics to act." Her question wasn't doubt, but a call for strategy, a trait Chloe had once overlooked in her stepmother's quiet strength. Chloe met her gaze, drawing on her past life knowledge without revealing its supernatural source. "Mrs. Lawson let slip their reliance on us. She panicked when I ended the engagement, admitting they couldn't rise without Morgan's backing. Ethan's been cozying up to our competitors, likely planting seeds for hostile takeovers. I saw documents on his desk, audit reports flagged with our subsidiaries, marked for restructuring. It's a setup to bleed us dry." William exchanged a glance with Eleanor, their shared concern morphing into determination. "If this is true, we've been too generous," he said. "We supported the Lawsons for your sake, Chloe. If they're turning on us, we'll cut them off, completely." Chloe's chest tightened with gratitude. Her parents' support for Ethan had been her fault in her past life, driven by her blind love. Now, their trust in her warning was a lifeline. "We need to act fast," she said. "Diversify our investments to shield our core assets. Audit all partnerships, especially those tied to Ethan's projects. We can't let them exploit our trust any longer." Eleanor nodded, already reaching for her laptop. "I'll call our financial team tonight. We'll freeze joint accounts with the Lawsons and redirect funds to new ventures, real estate in Europe and tech startups in Asia. They won't see it coming." Her efficiency was a balm, a reminder of the stepmother who'd fought for the Morgans, even as they fell in Chloe's past life. William placed a hand on Chloe's shoulder, his eyes warm with pride. "You've grown, Chloe. I'm sorry you had to face this alone. From now on, we're a united front. The Morgans will stand tall." His words, so different from the despair of his final moments in her past life, brought a lump to her throat. She nodded, swallowing the urge to confess her rebirth. They didn't need to know. They needed her strength. As they mapped out their plan, Chloe's mind raced. Diversifying investments would protect their wealth, while audits would expose any Lawson tampering. She suggested hiring a discreet firm to investigate Ethan's dealings, uncovering evidence of his disloyalty. The strategy was proactive, a shield against the treachery she'd witnessed. The Lawsons' plot, once a death knell, was now a challenge she'd dismantle. Stepping into the foyer, Chloe glanced at the ancestral portraits lining the walls, generations of Morgans who'd weathered storms. The ethereal voice's command, "Choose wisely," echoed in her heart. She'd chosen to protect her family, not with vengeance, but with foresight. The rain had stopped, and the night sky was clear, stars winking like allies in her fight. The Morgans would rise stronger, and the Lawsons would learn the cost of their greed. Chloe's path was set, her resolve unbreakable. The grand ballroom of the Regency Hotel shimmered with opulence, its crystal chandeliers casting prisms across the elite gathered below. Chloe Morgan, resplendent in a golden evening gown, navigated the crowd of tycoons and aristocrats, her presence commanding respect. The Morgan family, a century-old dynasty, was the evening's cornerstone, their influence drawing every major player in the city. Yet beneath the clinking glasses and polished smiles, tension simmered. Chloe had ended her engagement with Ethan Lawson days ago, warning her parents of his family's plot to bankrupt them. Tonight, the Lawsons would face the consequences of their greed. Chloe stood with her father, William Morgan, and stepmother Eleanor near the ballroom's center, exchanging pleasantries with a tech mogul. Her reborn memories, Ethan's betrayal, and her family's ruin kept her vigilant. The Lawsons, invited only due to their ties to the Morgans, hovered at the edges, their forced smiles betraying unease. Mrs. Lawson, in a gaudy emerald dress, whispered to her husband, her eyes darting to Chloe. Dashing but restless, Ethan stood apart, his gaze fixed on a corner where Lily Green lingered, her simple dress marking her as an outsider. The music paused, and a hush fell as Ethan stepped forward, his voice cutting through the murmurs. "Ladies and gentlemen, I have something to say." He knelt before his parents and the Morgans, his eyes pleading. "Dad, Mom, Mr. and Mrs. Morgan, I beg you, let me be with Lily Green. Chloe and I have no love between us. It's my fault, but I'm asking for freedom to follow my heart." His raw and reckless words sent a ripple of shock through the crowd. Chloe's heart steadied, her past life pain dulled by resolve. In her previous life, Ethan's betrayal had broken her. Now it was his undoing. William's face darkened, his hand tightening on his cane. "Young man," he said, his voice cold as steel, "has the Morgan family ever mistreated you? Has Chloe done anything but support you?" He stepped closer, his presence towering. "Do you humiliate my daughter in public? Then let's make it official. From this moment, the Morgans and Lawsons are done. All engagement gifts will be returned tomorrow." The crowd gasped, whispers erupting like sparks. The Lawson-Morgan alliance had been a financial linchpin, elevating the Lawsons from obscurity. Now, that bridge was burning. Mrs. Lawson's face paled, her hands trembling as she clutched her husband's arm. Mr. Lawson, red with fury, roared, "Ethan, you ungrateful fool! You've dragged our name through the mud." The elite, once courteous to the Lawsons for Morgan's sake, turned away, their disdain palpable. The family's social standing crumbled in real time. Ethan rose, undeterred, and walked to Lily, who stood wide-eyed in the corner. "Lily, I'm free now," he murmured, taking her hand. His naivety, believing he'd remain the Lawson heir despite this scandal, stunned Chloe. She'd warned her parents of his ambition and their swift actions, freezing joint accounts, auditing partnerships, had already weakened the Lawson enterprises. Ethan's public stunt only hastened their fall. Mrs. Lawson, desperate to salvage her family's reputation, lunged toward Lily, her nails raking the girl's cheek. "You little wretch!" she shrieked, her voice unhinged. Lily yelped, clutching her face as blood welled. Ethan pulled his mother back, his expression torn between anger and shame. "Mom, stop! This isn't Lily's fault!" The crowd recoiled, the Lawson matriarch's violence cementing their disgrace. Mr. Lawson dragged his wife away, muttering apologies, but the damage was done. Chloe watched, her golden gown a beacon of composure. She felt no need to intervene. The Lawsons were unraveling themselves. Her father's declaration had protected her dignity, and the elite's rejection of Ethan ensured their isolation. Whispers reached her ears, rumors of Mr. Lawson's illegitimate sons, educated and eager to replace Ethan as heir. The Lawson patriarch, humiliated, would likely turn to them, further fracturing the family. Ethan, still clutching Lily's hand, met Chloe's gaze. "This was my choice, Chloe. I hope you understand." His tone held a smug edge as if he'd won something. Chloe's lips curved into a faint, calm smile. "She said you're not worth my time," her voice carrying across the ballroom. The words stung Ethan, his confidence faltering. He'd mistaken her silence for weakness. unaware she'd already saved Lily from his mother's schemes, sending her to Yunnan in her past life and planning to do so again. As the music resumed, the crowd dispersed their murmurs, a death knell for the Lawson name. Chloe joined her parents, and their unity contrasted with the Lawson chaos. "You handled that well," Eleanor said, her hand resting on Chloe's shoulder. William nodded pride in his eyes. "No one disrespects Morgan, and he walks away unscathed." Chloe's heart swelled, the ethereal voice's command, "Balance the scales," echoing within. She'd protected her family's honor without stooping to vengeance. The Lawsons' fall was theirs, and the Morgans stood stronger for it. As she sipped champagne, the ballroom's lights gleamed like stars, illuminating her forged path. The reckoning had begun, and Chloe was ready for what came next. The Fox family's anniversary party buzzed with energy, the garden of their mountain resort aglow with fairy lights and laughter. Radiant in a sapphire dress, Chloe Morgan mingled with childhood friends, her heart lighter after the Lawson family's public disgrace at the Regency banquet. She'd ended her engagement with Ethan Lawson, warned her parents of his family's plot, and watched their social standing crumble. Yet her reborn resolve, guided by the ethereal voice's command to balance the scales, kept her vigilant. The Lawsons' ambition lingered, a shadow she couldn't ignore. Chloe sipped wine at a garden table, trading quips with Mason Fox, the roguish heir of the Fox dynasty. Their villas neighbored each other, and their friendship, once strained by Chloe's loyalty to Ethan, was mending. "To ditching losers," Mason toasted, his smirk warm. Chloe clinked her glass, her smile genuine. She'd apologized for defending Ethan in the past, and Mason's forgiveness felt like a bridge rebuilt. The night was hers, free from the Lawsons' grasp, her future abroad beckoning. The mood shifted as Lily Green burst into the garden, her face flushed with urgency. Her simple blouse and jeans made her an outsider among the elite, but her eyes burned with determination. "Chloe, you can't drink that," she cried, snatching the wine glass from Chloe's hand and pouring it onto the grass. The crowd hushed, heads turning. Mason raised an eyebrow, but Chloe froze, her reborn instincts flaring. Lily's intensity wasn't that of a naive college student. It was something more profound, hauntingly familiar. "Lily, what are you doing?" Chloe asked, her voice steady but probing. She'd saved Lily once, sending her to Yunnan in her past life to escape Mrs. Lawson's schemes. Now, Lily's presence here, at a private event, suggested more than coincidence. The girl's hands trembled, but her gaze held firm. "Mrs. Lawson drugged your wine," she whispered, leaning close. "She wants you and Ethan to spend the night together. Reporters will catch you in the morning, forcing you to marry him. She's desperate to tie you to the Lawsons." Chloe's pulse quickened, the ethereal voice's warning, "Choose wisely," echoing. She studied Lily, noting the certainty in her eyes, a clarity born of more than instinct. "How do you know this?" she asked, her tone low. The crowd murmured, but Mason signaled them to back off, his protective stance giving Chloe space. Lily's lips parted, her voice dropping to a confessional hush. "I've lived this before, Chloe. I died because of Ethan. I was reborn, like you." The revelation hit Chloe like a spark. Lily's past life unfolded in her words, raw and vivid. After Chloe's downfall in their previous timeline, Ethan had brought Lily back from France, where she'd fled to study fashion. He'd promised love, but his ambition led him to organized crime. A shady partner coveted Lily, and Ethan, seeking new markets, handed her over without hesitation. "They killed me," Lily said, her voice cracking. "Tortured me for sport. As I died, a voice, soft like starlight, told me to save the innocent. It gave me another chance." Chloe's breath caught. The same ethereal voice had granted her rebirth, a karmic force binding their fates. Lily's eyes, red with unshed tears, mirrored Chloe's resolve. "I overheard Mrs. Lawson tonight," Lily continued. "She's at this resort, plotting with a server to drug you. I had to warn you." Her sincerity, stripped of pretense, forged a bond between them. Two women, reborn from betrayal, united against a common enemy. Chloe's mind raced. The drugged wine explained the heat rising in her chest, the faint dizziness clouding her thoughts. She'd only sipped once, but the effects were creeping in. "Mason," she said, her voice urgent, Get me out of here, now. Mason didn't hesitate, wrapping an arm around her and guiding her through a back exit. Lily followed her presence with a quiet strength. Don't stay in any rooms here, she warned. Mrs. Lawson's watching. The cool night air hit Chloe as they reached Mason's car, a sleek convertible parked under the resort's pines. Her skin burned, the drug stoking an unnatural urge. She clenched her fists, fighting the haze. Hospital, she gasped, sliding into the passenger seat. Mason floored the gas, the car speeding down winding roads. Lily sat in the back, her silence heavy with shared understanding. Chloe's thoughts churned. Mrs. Lawson's desperation had escalated, her schemes now endangering lives. Mason, how far? Chloe asked, her voice ragged. Sweat beaded on her forehead, her dress clinging to her skin. 15 minutes, he replied, his eyes fixed on the road. Hang on, Chloe. His calm urgency anchored her, a reminder of his loyalty. Lily leaned forward, her voice soft. You're stronger than this. We both are. Her words, born of their shared rebirth, steadied Chloe's resolve. The drug's effects intensified, but Chloe's will held firm. She wouldn't fall into Mrs. Lawson's trap, nor let Lily face her wrath. Their alliance, forged in the ashes of past betrayals, was a new kind of power. The stars above gleamed like the ethereal voice's promise as the car sped toward safety. Chloe's fight wasn't just for herself, but for Lily, the Morgans, and justice. The road ahead was perilous, but they'd face it unbroken together. Chloe Morgan stood in her bedroom at the Morgan estate, the morning sun filtering through silk curtains. Her suitcase lay open, filled with essentials for her journey abroad to study business. The Lawson family's disgrace at the Regency banquet and Mrs. Lawson's failed attempt to drug her at the Fox party had solidified Chloe's resolve. She'd ended her engagement with Ethan Lawson, warned her parents of his family's plot to bankrupt them, and forged an alliance with Lily Green, a fellow reborn soul. The ethereal voice's command, balance the scales, propelled her toward a future she'd shape herself. Her phone buzzed with a confirmation, her acceptance to a prestigious business program in the UK. In her past life, she'd relied on Ethan to inherit the Morgan legacy, a choice that led to ruin. Now, she'd build her foundation, ensuring her family's empire endured. She packed a leather-bound notebook, its pages filled with ideas for global investments, ventures to shield the Morgans from threats like the Lawsons. Her heart raced with purpose, the weight of her past failures lifting with each step toward independence. A knock at the door drew her attention. Her stepmother Eleanor entered, her eyes warm but tinged with concern. Chloe, your father and I are proud of you, she said, handing her a velvet box. Inside was a sapphire pendant, a Morgan heirloom. Wear this abroad. It'll remind you who you are. Chloe's throat tightened. In her past life, she'd dismissed Eleanor's loyalty, believing Mrs. Lawson's lies about her. Now, she saw her stepmother's strength. Thank you, Mom, she said, embracing her. The word Mom felt right. A bridge rebuilt. Later, Chloe visited the Fox estate to mend another tie. Mason Fox, her childhood friend and the Fox heir, lounged in his study, his roguish charm undimmed. Their friendship had frayed when Chloe defended Ethan, but his help during the drugging incident had rekindled trust. Mason, she began, her voice steady, I was wrong to back Ethan over you. He was never worth it. I'm sorry. Mason's smirk softened into a genuine smile. Took you long enough, Morgan? But you're back to your senses. Apology accepted. They clinked coffee mugs, the ease of their bond returning like a familiar melody. As Chloe prepared to leave, her phone pinged with a message from Lily Green. I need your help. At the airport. Lawson's after me. Chloe's pulse quickened. Lily, reborn like her, had warned her of Mrs. Lawson's drugging plot. Now she was fleeing Ethan's latest betrayal. Chloe grabbed her keys and sped to the airport, the city's skyline blurring past. Her reborn memories, Ethan's cruelty, Lily's past life death at the hands of criminals, fueled her urgency. She wouldn't let Lily suffer again. At the airport's VIP lounge, Chloe found Lily, her face pale and eyes red. She clutched a worn backpack, her fashion design sketches peeking out. Chloe, thank you, Lily gasped, her voice trembling. Ethan's business is failing. He and Mrs. Lawson want to give me to a partner to seal a deal. They're here, searching for me. Her words echoed her past life fate when Ethan had sold her to gangsters. Chloe's jaw tightened, the ethereal voice's call to justice ringing clear. Stay calm, Chloe said, guiding Lily to a corner. You're leaving with me. She'd planned a stop in France before the UK, and Lily's fashion design program in Paris aligned perfectly. Mason arrived, having followed Chloe's urgent call. Trouble? He asked, scanning the lounge. Chloe nodded. Lawsons are hunting Lily. We need to hide her. Mason's eyes narrowed, his loyalty unwavering. Restroom, now. Chloe and Lily slipped into the lounge's restroom, their footsteps muffled by the hum of travelers. Lily's voice dropped to a whisper. I overheard Ethan last night. His investors are pulling out since your family cut ties. He thinks sacrificing me will save his deals. Her fear was raw, but her resolve matched Chloe's. They were two women, reborn from betrayal, refusing to be pawns. Chloe squeezed her hand. You're not his to sacrifice. We'll get you to France. Minutes later, Mason signaled the all clear. Ethan and a Lawson associate had searched the lounge and left, frustrated. Chloe arranged for Lily to board her private flight, and her family's resources were used to ensure discretion. As they hurried to the gate, Lily's eyes brimmed with gratitude. I didn't deserve your kindness in our past life, she said, but I'll make this one count. Chloe smiled, their shared rebirth a silent bond. We both will. At the gate, Mason stood watch, his presence a shield. You're a magnet for drama, Morgan, he teased, but his eyes were serious. Be safe out there. Chloe nodded, her heart warmed by his steadfastness. She and Lily boarded, the plane's engines roaring as they left the Lawsons behind. The sky stretched wide, a canvas for the futures they'd forge. Chloe's path abroad was more than an escape, a vow to raise, protect, and reclaim her power with Lily. Chloe Morgan stepped onto the cobblestone paths of her UK university, the autumn air crisp with the scent of fallen leaves. Her new life as a business student had begun, a deliberate step to rebuild the Morgan legacy on her terms. Behind her lay the wreckage of her past life, Ethan Lawson's betrayal, her family's near ruin, and the horrors she'd endured. Ahead was a future she'd forged through intellect and resolve, guided by the ethereal voice's command to balance the scales. Her escape from the Lawsons' schemes, alongside Lily Green, had brought her to this moment, and she was determined to thrive. Her London campus buzzed with ambition, its lecture halls filled with global elites and sharp minds. Chloe threw herself into her studies, tackling complex financial models and strategic management. Her first weeks were daunting. Deciphering econometric equations felt like scaling a mountain, and cultural nuances in group projects tested her patience. Yet each challenge honed her skills. She spent late nights in the library, poring over case studies of corporate turnarounds, her notebook filled with strategies to protect the Morgan empire. Her professors noted her drive, one remarking, Miss Morgan, "You analyze markets like a seasoned CEO." Beyond academics, Chloe networked with international investors, her Morgan name opening doors. At a finance symposium, she pitched a diversification plan for her family's assets, tech startups in Singapore and renewable energy in Scandinavia, inspired by her warning to her parents. The peer applause fueled her confidence, starkly contrasting with the naive heiress who'd trusted Ethan. Her past life failures, etched in memories of her father's suicide and her torment, drove her to master the skills she'd once left to others. Lily Green, now in Paris, kept in touch via late-night calls. Her fashion design program was rigorous, but her voice carried a newfound strength. I'm sketching collections inspired by freedom, Lily said, her words tinged with gratitude. Chloe had arranged her safe passage, shielding her from Ethan's plan to sell her to business partners. Their shared rebirth, marked by the same ethereal voice urging justice, bound them. Lily's updates, filled with sketches and dreams, reminded Chloe of their mutual fight to rise above betrayal. Mason Fox, the loyal friend, lingered in London for a month, helping Chloe settle. He navigated her through the city's maze, from cozy pubs to university haunts, his roguish charm easing her transition. You're tougher than you look, Morgan, he teased over coffee, his eyes warm. Their friendship, mended after Chloe apologizes for defending Ethan, was a steady anchor. Yet the night of Mrs. Lawson's drugging plot had left a complication. Chloe was pregnant, a secret she hadn't shared. The drug's effects had led to an intimate moment with Mason, but she refused to let it define her path. One evening in her sleek apartment near campus, Chloe stared at a pregnancy test, and its positive result was a quiet shock. In her past life, she'd lost everything to Ethan's ambition. Now she'd face this alone, not as a burden, but as a choice. She'd raise the child without trapping Mason, preserving her independence. When she told him she'd take a break from studies when the time came, he nodded, respecting her resolve. "You're a force, Chloe," he said, his voice soft. "I'll be here, whatever you need." Mason's presence was a comfort, not a romance. He explored London with her, from Thames-side walks to bustling markets, but never pushed beyond friendship. "I'm heading back soon," he said one night, the city's lights reflecting in his eyes. "But I'll visit. You're not rid of me yet." Chloe smiled, grateful for his loyalty. Scarred by Ethan's betrayal, her heart wasn't ready for love. But Mason's steadfastness was a reminder of trust earned, not given. Chloe's studies intensified, her focus sharpening. She aced a project on risk management, drawing on her past life knowledge of Lawson's sabotage. A professor's challenge, restructuring a failing conglomerate, became her proving ground. She proposed a bold pivot to sustainable investments, earning praise and a mentorship offer. Each success built her foundation, a shield against the vulnerabilities that had once doomed her family. She sent updates to her parents, who were fortifying the Morgan empire with new ventures, their audits exposing Ethan's early manipulations. Lily's letters from Paris arrived weekly, filled with sketches and gratitude. "I'm free because of you," one read. "I'll make something of this life." Chloe's heart warmed their alliance, a testament to their reborn strength. As winter approached, Chloe stood on her balcony, the London skyline a canvas of possibility. The ethereal voice's promise pulsed within. Her exile was no banishment, but a rebirth. She was no longer the heiress who'd trusted unquestioningly. She was a strategist, a mother-to-be, and a guardian of her legacy, ready to face the world. Chloe Morgan stood on the balcony of her London apartment, the city's skyline shimmering under a winter dusk. Her first semester of business studies had sharpened her into a strategist, her mind brimming with plans to fortify the Morgan empire. Far from the Lawson family's schemes, she'd built a new life, her pregnancy a quiet promise of the future. The ethereal voice that had granted her rebirth balanced the scales, echoed in her heart, its command fulfilled not through vengeance but justice. As she prepared for her second term, whispers of the Lawson family's collapse reached her, a fitting end to their greed. Back home, Ethan Lawson's world unraveled. The Morgan family's severance, freezing joint accounts, and auditing partnerships had gutted his business prospects. Investors, once drawn by the Morgan name, abandoned him, leaving his real estate projects teetering. Desperate to maintain his empire, Ethan sought quick fixes, brokering deals with black market financiers. At a clandestine meeting in a smoky warehouse, he shook hands with a syndicate leader, trading promises for cash. "Ethan said you'll get your cut," his voice tight, unaware the deal tethered him to criminals. His arrogance blinded him. He believed his foreign education and charm made him untouchable, the Lawson heir destined for greatness. But his new partners were ruthless. When a deal soured, a shipment of illicit goods seized at the border, the syndicate demanded repayment. Ethan, strapped for funds, made a fatal error. At a lavish gala, he slipped a diamond necklace from a wealthy client's neck, intending to pawn it. The theft was caught on camera, and the client, a vindictive heiress, pressed charges. "You're finished," Lawson sneered, her influence ensuring his arrest. The scandal spread like wildfire. Tabloids splashed Ethan's mugshot, dubbing him the Phoenix Man Fallen. His father, Mr. Lawson, disowned him, turning to his illegitimate sons, educated and eager, to salvage the family business. At a shareholder meeting, one son, a shrewd lawyer, proposed a restructuring plan, sidelining Ethan. "He's a liability," the son declared, winning the board's favor. Ethan's dreams of a dynasty crumbled, his naivety exposed. He'd thought himself indispensable, blind to the vipers in his own family. Mrs. Lawson's fate was no kinder. Her schemes, drugging Chloe and plotting against Lily, had backfired. tarnishing her reputation. At a society tea, whispers of her violence at the Regency banquet followed her. "She clawed that poor girl's face," a matron muttered, turning away. Mr. Lawson, humiliated by her actions, filed for divorce, parading younger mistresses through their mansion. When Mrs. Lawson, in a fit of rage, attacked one mistress with a vase, he evicted her. "You're a disgrace," he spat, leaving her with nothing but a rented flat and fading dreams of grandeur. Ethan's desperation led to his final fall. Released on bail, he fled to a shady contact promising protection. Instead, the syndicate, enraged by his debts, sold him to a trafficking ring in northern Myanmar, the same fate he'd once accused Chloe of inflicting on Lily. The irony was bitter. His choices had led him to the hell he'd condemned. Word of his fate reached Chloe via a cryptic email from a former Lawson associate. "Ethan's gone, Myanmar, no one's looking for him." Chloe read the message in her apartment, her breath steady. In her past life, Ethan's hatred had destroyed her, believing she'd harmed Lily. Now, his downfall was self-inflicted, a consequence of greed and recklessness. She felt no joy, only closure. The Morgans, fortified by her parents' diversification and audits, thrived. Her father sent updates of new ventures, tech hubs in Dubai and vineyards in Tuscany, as proof of their resilience. Eleanor's emails brimmed with pride. "You've saved us, Chloe." Lily Green's letters from Paris arrived weekly, each with vibrant sketches. "I'm designing a collection for next spring." She wrote her words alive with purpose. Her fashion program, funded by Chloe's discreet support, was her lifeline. Their shared rebirth, marked by the ethereal voice's call to justice, bound them. "You gave me this chance," Lily wrote. "I'll honor it." Chloe smiled, her heart warmed by their alliance, a testament to their strength over betrayal. As Chloe prepared for a finance exam, her phone buzzed with a call from Mason Fox. "Heard about Ethan," he said, his voice dry. The Phoenix crashed. Chloe chuckled, their friendship a steady anchor. Mason had returned home but planned to visit, his loyalty unwavering. Her pregnancy, now in its early months, was a quiet strength. She'd raise her child alone, not as a burden but as a choice, her independence intact. The London skyline glowed, a canvas of her growth. Chloe's studies had honed her into a leader, her past life lessons a guide. The ethereal voice's promise pulsed within. She'd balance the scales, not with hate, but wisdom. Ethan's descent was his own, and Chloe's ascent was beginning. She turned from the balcony, her notebook open to a new strategy, ready to shape a future where the Morgans would soar. Chloe Morgan stood on the stage of her UK university, her graduation gown flowing as she accepted her diploma. The auditorium buzzed with applause, and her classmates' cheers were a testament to her transformation. 3 years of rigorous business studies had forged her into a strategist, her mind sharp with financial acumen and global insights. The Morgan empire, once threatened by the Lawson family's greed, now thrived under her parents' stewardship, bolstered by her diversification strategies. The ethereal voice that had granted her rebirth, balanced the scales, resonated in her heart, its promise fulfilled through wisdom, not vengeance. In the audience, Mason Fox held their son Liam, whose bright eyes mirrored Chloe's. Born during a semester break, Liam was her quiet strength, a choice she'd embraced without binding Mason. Her past life's pain, Ethan Lawson's betrayal, her father's suicide, her torment, had taught her to trust herself first. Yet Mason's loyalty, unwavering through her exile, had softened her heart. He'd visited often, bringing laughter and support, never pressing for more than friendship. Today, his proud smile as Liam clapped tiny hands warmed her soul. After the ceremony, Chloe joined her family by the Thames, the river's calm flow reflecting the peace she'd found. Her father, William, and stepmother Eleanor hugged her. "You've made us proud," William said, his voice thick. In her past life, his trust in Ethan had led to his death. Now he stood firm, and the Morgan legacy was secure. Eleanor, once misjudged by Chloe, beamed. "You're a faithful Morgan, Chloe." Their unity, rebuilt through her warnings and their strategic moves, diversifying investments, auditing partnerships, was a victory over the past. Lily Green's letter arrived that morning, postmarked from Paris. "My first collection debuts next month," she wrote, her words vibrant with purpose. Thank you for giving me this life. Lily's escape from Ethan's schemes, aided by Chloe at the airport, led her to a thriving career in fashion design. Their shared rebirth, marked by the same ethereal voice urging justice, had forged an unbreakable bond. Chloe smiled, tucking the letter into her pocket, grateful for their alliance born from shared pain. As the sun dipped low, Chloe, Mason, and Liam strolled along the riverbank, the city's lights twinkling. On Liam's first birthday, Mason knelt, holding a ring their son had helped choose, a sapphire matching Chloe's heirloom pendant. "Chloe, will you marry me?" he asked, his voice steady but hopeful. In her past life, love had been a trap. Now it was a choice. She looked at Liam, then Mason, her heart full. "Yes," she said, slipping on the ring. The crowd around them cheered, a spontaneous celebration of their joy. Their engagement wasn't a tether, but a partnership. Chloe and Mason agreed to raise Liam together, and their families were supportive without pressure. The Morgans and Foxes, both century-old dynasties, toasted their union at a quiet dinner, free of the elite's politics. Chloe's friends from university joined their laughter, a reminder of the life she'd built. Mason, ever roguish, whispered, "You're stuck with me now, Morgan." She laughed, the sound light and free, a stark contrast to the screams of her past life. News of Ethan Lawson's fate drifted to Chloe at a London banquet, shared over wine by a former associate. "He's a shadow now," the man said. He was caught stealing and sold to Myanmar's underworld by his shady partners. Ethan's descent, fueled by black market deals and desperation, mirrored the fate he'd once accused Chloe of inflicting on Lily. Mrs. Lawson fared no better, divorced and destitute after attacking her husband's mistress. She lived in obscurity, shunned by the society she'd craved. Their ruin, whispered among the elite, was a cautionary tale of greed's cost. Chloe sipped her wine, the news closing a chapter. In her past life, Ethan's hatred had destroyed her, believing she'd harmed Lily. Now, his downfall was his own, a poetic justice she hadn't sought but welcomed. The Morgans flourished, and their new ventures, tech hubs and vineyards, proved their strength. Lily's success in Paris, her designs gracing runways, was a shared triumph. Chloe's heart, once scarred, now beat with purpose and love. The river's gentle ripples mirrored her calm as she walked with Mason and Liam under the London stars. The ethereal voice's promise had guided her from ruin to redemption. She'd balanced the scales, not with hate but with resilience, protecting her family and lifting others. The future was uncertain, but with her son's hand in hers and Mason's arm around her, Chloe was whole at that moment. The Morgan legacy would endure. Her joy was her most significant victory.